Hello everybody, welcome back to Statik's Geek Notes, part 2 of UML diagrams. This is in response actually to a comment on my first UML diagrams video. I made these originally back when I was doing my engineering program for university, trying to figure out how to make some of the diagrams for my assignments using Linux. And we're using the Linux tool Dia, which is now available also for Macintosh and Windows. So in order to do, actually what we're going to do this time is we're going to look at two different types of behavioral diagrams in Dia. This time we're going to look at use case diagrams and sequence diagrams. Now, use case diagrams are not the type of diagram that you as a programmer or designer may be used to doing. They're not a development tool for the insides of your device, how it works, how it functions, the nuts and bolts, as it were, of your design. A use case diagram talks more about how your client relates to your product. So if your client wants to be able to do certain activities, they want to be able to use it certain ways, they want it to perform certain functions, a use case diagram lays out how your client interacts with your product. It's not the same as the other types of diagrams. It's behavioral. So in order to use Dia to do a use case diagram, we're going to be using these four functions here. The large process container, an actor, a use case, and a connector for those. So let's get started with Dia. So doing a use case diagram, the first thing you need to have is who is using your product. And that is the actor. This little stick man over here, that is your actor. In this case, we're going to call that a customer. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at the use cases for a customer of our bank account software that we were looking at last time. And I'm going to check, make sure Snap to Grid is on, and it is. Alright, so customers of bank software don't normally interact directly with the bank software. You don't see a person going into the bank, sitting behind the desk, and interacting directly with the bank software. That's way too much power. But usually, your usual point of interaction to bank software as a customer is an ATM. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab this one here, the large package, and we're going to call that an ATM, an automatic transaction machine, and we'll make it a little bit bigger. Okay, so this is the package that the customer is going to be interacting with. Use cases are how they interact with that device. So some of the use cases a customer may have for an ATM is with these circles. And we'll drop it in there. Like, one of the things you might want to do with an ATM is make a deposit. Deposit. I'm terrible at spelling all of a sudden. A deposit. Now you see when I clicked on the inside of here with this, it's actually locked inside of this container. So I can't get it out, which is fine. I don't really want to get it out. I want to actually make a nice looking arrangement. So there's our deposit inside of the ATM. That's one of the use cases. I'm actually going to make this a little bit bigger because we have something else we're going to do with that in a bit. Alright, so another use case is a withdraw. Now, withdraw is the action that your customer is going to do, not the noun for it. So when you withdraw funds from your bank account, you make a withdrawal. That's why there's no L on this one. This is the action you want your customer to be able to do. You want your customer to be able to withdraw. Another thing you may want to do is view balance. Oops. I need an extra A in there. Balance. View balance. So now we have three activities for our customer to do inside of our ATM. And what we're going to do is we're just going to grab a standard arrow. And you notice here there's some little blue X's around the customer. These are attachment points for your arrows. So if I click right on it and I drag it over, you notice automatically when I'm inside of the ATM, it automatically goes to the center of the ATM box. If I go to the center of the deposit one, it automatically goes to the center. But what I want to do is I want to go right to the attachment point. And what I'm going to do is go into the properties and take this arrow off. Because most of your use case diagrams don't have arrows. They just connect the customer to a use case. And rather than doing another arrow and then taking the arrowheads off, one of the shortcuts is if I Control C and Control V, I can make 2 copies of this, and I can just bring them in close to where I want them, and then I can drag them onto the exact spot I want them. Like so. Now, you may notice that I could put this into the center. You notice that it goes to the peripheral. And what happens is how your arrows move and relate to your different objects. So if I move this around, you'll see that these two stay connected to that point, but this one always just stays on the perimeter or periphery. I gotta decide which one I'm going to use. So I will go here and I'm going to connect this on here. The same thing would happen in here. If I only went to the center, they would move around and not be connected directly to it. I wanted to use the connection points, and now you see if I move them down, they stay connected to that exact same point, which is the way I want it. Now you notice I left some space here. There are two different kinds of deposit that you can usually make to a bank machine. So we're going to put those in as separate use cases because you need to be able to handle those in your software. You want to be able to deposit cash. How you handle a cash deposit in the ATM is going to be different than how you handle a deposit of a check. These are 2 use cases that the client could have, the customer could have, but they're both deposits. So we're going to actually use this arrow here to show that relationship. So deposit cash and deposit check are both specialized versions of the use case of deposit. So you can handle those within your software. So when we were looking at our bank account, we were talking about how a client might want to open an account or close an account. And those are not usually things that you can do at an ATM. Usually you need to involve a different person or different entity, a different actor. In this case, it would be a teller. So let's create another actor over here and call it teller. This is our teller actor. Let's move all of this over a bit into the center. There. So here's our teller. The teller doesn't interact with an ATM. The teller interacts with the bank software. So now we have this box for our bank software. So, what are the use cases for a teller with the bank software? Well, they're going to have the same ones as a client. Because when a client comes in, they might want to make a deposit. They might want to make a withdraw. They might want to print balances. They might want to view balances. So print balances is a new one that the other one didn't have. We could have put print balances in, but we didn't. But the 2 new ones we want to make a special note of here are open account and close account. These ones are specific just to a teller. And again, over here, we can deposit cash. And we can deposit check. And we'll connect those up. And because I did a copy paste, I should still be able to connect these up. Now you'll notice these are offset, so eventually they're going to go off the screen if you just keep hitting Control V. But if you hit Control C and then hit Control V, it restarts putting them up there again. And I probably have too many, and that's okay. I will get rid of some in a minute. Yeah, so I have one too many. We'll delete that. And we'll connect these up. And that constant noise you hear behind me is the fans and everything else for the ship. Very annoying, very difficult to make a video, but hopefully I can filter out some of it. And the rest of it should be pretty loud, I hope. I'm trying to talk directly into my microphone here and hopefully give you a good audio, but no guarantees. So we'll connect up all of our use cases. I'm just going to do this quickly because we're running out of time. We don't need to fool around and make it look pretty. We'll just connect it up like this to our actor. So the only other thing I want to show you on a use case diagram is that these need to be able to interact with each other. So when you make a deposit at an ATM, it needs to tell the bank that you've made the deposit. When you make a withdrawal, it's got to be able to make a withdrawal. And at view balance, it has to tell the ATM what the balance is. So we can show the relationship between these two pieces of software. But these are the use cases. So when you finish your software, you can go sit down with your client and say, hey, client, how would you like to make a deposit? The client goes through and uses the front end of your software to make a deposit. They don't care how the back end works. All they care about is that you can actually make a deposit of cash and a check. They want it to make sure that they can make a withdrawal. They want to make sure they can view their balance, and then it works the way they think it should work from the front end. They don't care how the back end works. Same thing as if they're the teller. They just want to make sure it works the way they think it should work. So the other kind of diagram we're going to look at is a sequence diagram. Now, a sequence diagram talks about how things have to happen in time, how different pieces of the software have to interact with each other over time, and the different kinds of signals and triggers and things that happen between them in order to have those things happen. In order to do sequence diagrams, we're going to use 5 different buttons. We're going to use the note one, the actor, the large package, this one here called lifeline, and we're going to use this one down here, the transition. So again, let's talk about our bank account example with your customer interacting with an ATM. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to put down our actor, who is our customer. Now the customer has his own lifeline. Make sure my snap to grid is on. It is. Alright, so a lifeline for a customer is what the customer is doing, his actions. Alright, so there's our customer. The customer decides he wants money, so he's going to do something. He goes up to the ATM. So the ATM is also an actor in this. The ATM is an actor because the ATM has to do certain things as well. Alright, so the customer goes up to the ATM and he's going to do something at the ATM. So we're going to give the ATM its lifeline. Move this down and try to attach that to this ATM. There we go. Shoot. Can't seem to get that to stick there. Alright, so sequence diagrams read left to right and top to bottom. So each of these happens at a slightly lower level to show what each one is doing. And you'll notice they still have the same little blue X's in here. If I right click on this, I can add connection points. I can increase the distance between them, decrease the distance between, and set a default one for it. Inside properties are not a whole lot. Draw focus of control is this. This is where the control is. So when this box is there, that lifeline has focus. It's the one that's active. That's why we read them from the top down, so you can see which one has the focus at any point in time. So if you drew a horizontal line, only one of these should have focus, except for the times when they're sending messages between each other. Destruction mark is where that lifeline stops altogether, like that. There's no more connections past that. But because the way we're going to do this, we're going to leave that off. So the customer comes up to the ATM. The first thing he's going to do, it's going to be an action. So we put this connection in here and double click. We're going to leave auto route on. The trigger is what prompts the action. The trigger is he wants money. So what does he do? He drives up to the ATM and inserts card. Okay. Customer wants money. Goes to the ATM, inserts card. Let's connect that to there. Okay, from the center of that one down to the start of this one. Now he's done. So his box here is a little short. Now we're going to do something with the ATM. So the ATM is going to do a couple actions that are going to relate back to itself. So this is the kind of relationship we see. It does something and gives its information back. So the trigger is a card is inserted. So up to that point, the ATM didn't know anything was gone. All of a sudden, the card is inserted. So it's going to read account number. Okay, so it's going to read the account number from the card. Now, one thing it could find is that there's no account number, or even more general, invalid card. So it's an invalid card. It's not going to read the account number because it's not the right kind of card. And we can grab these and move them just a little bit. There, that makes a little more sense. So, and it returns the account number back to itself. So assuming that it was a valid card, we guarded against that, it now has an account number. If it has an account number, the next thing it needs is a PIN. So what we're going to do is we shorten that down. We grab another lifeline for our customer here, because our customer now has something to do. The ATM needs an account number. So the next thing it does, it goes to here. Let's move this down a little bit. So the trigger is account, let's see, valid account number, action, request, PIN. So it got a valid account number. Now it's going to ask for a PIN. So it goes back to the customer. So we'll bring this down a bit. So now this has lost focus. It's over to the customer. Something new has to happen. And actually, let's just keep this one as staying in focus because we have enough things for it to do. Alright, so it asks the customer for a PIN. So what's the customer do? Well, trigger is PIN requested, action, enter PIN. Okay, so the customer is requested a PIN, enters the PIN. I'll keep this interaction going. Now that it has received a PIN, we're going to do another self-referenced action. Trigger, PIN received, encrypt, account, and PIN. Alright, so it gets a PIN, it encrypts both that PIN number and the account number and sends it back to itself. ATMs don't work on their own, so we actually need a third actor in this, who is the bank, or the bank software in this case. Alright, so the bank software also gets a lifeline. In this case, the bank software has not been involved at this point. Its involvement doesn't start until down here. Now that the ATM has an encrypted account number and PIN, it's going to talk to the bank software. So, encrypted PIN / account action request validation. So it's going to request validation from the bank, and that message goes out. So you can see how we have this interaction between different pieces of software in time. So we can read this from here to there, follow it around. You can see the sequence just keeps going, but it deals with what parts are on each piece of the puzzle. If you have a particular part of the software that is done by a module, you can put in the large package. Now you notice this large package has now covered everything up. If I go to Objects and hit Send to Back, now it's behind everything. And let's just say this is our encryption module, because it may be separate. The encryption module could be a common piece of software between these two. Now we've just called out that these two things are related through the same module. You don't have to do that, but it's an option if you want to group things together. So that's the basics of doing a sequence diagram. It does get kind of complicated, so what you can do is you can add a note in here with the note icon. This customer is waiting while the software interaction occurs. Alright, that's just a note. You can add notes in just to help clarify points as to what you want them to be able to do. Again, you can export this as an SVG. You can set the page out to be fit to 1x1 page, landscape, or portrait mode, however you want it. But that's doing those diagrams. Hopefully we'll do another video very shortly on doing some other types of diagrams. If you like this video, please comment on it, especially if you have a specific kind of diagram you'd like to see, or if you have different tasks that you'd like to be able to do for an engineering program. I did computer and electrical engineering using Linux for 99% of all my activities. So if you have something you wanted to accomplish using Linux for those, feel free to ask about it. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like this video if you liked it. And again, I say this video is in response to a comment on my first UML video, so if you have other things, I will respond to them. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.